Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ship Chasing. Last week, we teased these Omnifantasy leagues. You guys came out in the comments section and said, let's do these. So over the past few days, we've gotten these set up. We have 3 leagues, Ben. I believe they're all underway, correct?
I think so, yeah. Can't actually see all the leagues. So you guys started yours, and I started mine. Mine is 7 picks in. This is me looking at my second screen. Pat's favorite thing.
It's on the ceiling. How high is that? He goes, I can't actually see the leagues. Are the leagues in your house?
Yeah. It's a TV mounted on my wall. That's my second screen. But yeah, my draft's through 7 picks. I do have a few people that haven't been able to reach yet, and one of them's on the clock and has been on the clock for a couple of years. So Taylor 0093.
Couple of years.
If you're listening. Yeah, it feels like a couple of years.
In Top Shot time, it's been a couple of years. Hang on real quick too. I have other few things to say. Do I get hipster cred for drinking this beer tonight?
Ooh,
yes,
yeah.
you do, dude.
Look at that.
Yes,
Hoppy,
you do.
Hazy,
Is
and
that
light.
a Twin Tropics logo?
Yeah, that's why I bought it, because I love the can.
Craft brewery says hazy on the can. Cool logo. Yeah, dude. Major points.
Oh man! All of a sudden, I want to go to a speakeasy in a tunnel.
The only way to play that was to go, I hate it.
I will admit this. My beer palate is growing. It's
Really?
expanding. It legitimately is.
Wow.
I think I've drank so many Modelo's that my brain was just like, you need a little something more, buddy.
Yes, that's how it starts.
So here's what we're gonna do tonight. We have these drafts underway. I'm actually on the clock at the turn in mine, and we figured we can continue to talk through these. I know there's a lot of people doing these for the first time, maybe want to talk some strategy. We're going to do that. Also, if you didn't get in these leagues, I did see a couple straggler comments come through today before we set these up. If there's more interest, we can get you guys together and help you guys set up some more of these leagues. It's very easy to do through Twitter, so don't feel like you have missed out. Ben, I know last time you talked to us a little bit about the timeline. I assume the sooner the better, right?
Yeah, sooner the better, but we had Champions League start yesterday and today, the round of 16, the first legs of like 2-match competitions. I know the soccer lingo very, very well, as you can tell. The second legs are not until early March, though. So we're going to get some results also next week, which is the first leg of the rest of the round of 16. That will just be known information in your draft. Like we were talking before we came on, Pat said he drafted. Who did you draft that lost right away?
Well, I was deciding between Barcelona and Real Madrid with my pick. And I like Barcelona better. I've been there. Pete's been there. He's got some connections.
Wait, part of the reason you draft Barcelona is because I've been there?
No, I was just hoping you would do it. I was hoping you'd drop a Barcelona. I was just trying to throw you a Barcelona.
Oh, I love Barcelona. I was so pissed when you took them from me.
Thank you. That's all I was trying to set up. No, but I like Barcelona better, so I went with Barcelona. And then they lost 4-1 today. And Real Madrid was still there when it got back to me, so I just took them instead.
So yeah, the Champions League results are coming in. You're going to get some bad results. I took Juventus in that same draft with you, and they got beat too. But other than Champions League, the next key date is basically the NCAA tournament. The first golf tournament will go off too. We use the Players Championship as well as the 4 majors, and the Players is in. It's like a week before the NCAA tournament. So early to mid-March you want to be done by. We have a few weeks, but you probably want to get these drafts started in the next week to 2 weeks.
Yeah, and so the way it works too is I can just show you guys the screen here. For create a new league, you do need someone to kind of be the quote-unquote commissioner. You name the league, put in your ID, you put in the rest of the Twitter handles. The one thing about this is there is no edit or back button, so if you mess up, like you just need to go back and start from scratch. So make sure you get the Twitter handles in. We've been doing all of these sports. And then the draft rounds, we've been doing 18, which I believe, Ben, is 12 plus 6 flexes.
13 plus 5 flexes. There's 13
plus 5. Okay. So yeah. And then once you do that, it's very simple. Like here's my ship chasing league right here. I am on the clock at the turn. These are the guys in the league. You can look at the big board here to see the individual teams. The thing that's nice about these standings is Kevin has pulled in expected points based on a model he used for futures bets. Ben, what goes into the special sauce here for expected points?
Yeah, he's running sims based on futures odds, and I know he has some element of the actual like bracket. So like if you go to the NCAA basketball one, because it's such a huge field, the expected points for the top teams are lower because it's not as easy to make the final 8, which is every sport scores the final 8 teams score. But in college basketball, you can't just like be really good in the regular season and get to the Elite 8. Obviously, you have to still win three tournament games. So their expected points are a little lower when you do the sims. Some of the other sports, obviously, like football, if you get the top seed, you get a bye. You're immediately in the final 8. You're immediately in the quarterfinals, and you get 20 points, and then it only goes up from there. So the sims for some of those sports are a little higher, and even football's low, you can see. But NBA is another one that traditionally has. They also have shorter odds. Obviously, the Lakers have very, very strong odds, which helps their expected points. But yeah, the sims are really helpful, good benchmarks. They're not updated constantly. The last they were updated was February 13th. They'll be updated again, soon enough, but they're a good benchmark.
Yeah. And, there's kind of two different factors, at least that I am weighing when I look at these. One, obviously the expected points, but also actually maybe 3 factors. Then the opportunity costs across some of these sports. And then also the spread, the drop off. Obviously, some of these, the expected points, I can go over to one here. Let's pick a sport like college basketball, which has a ton of variance in March Madness. You'll notice a pretty smooth spread here. Even these seem like relative to what actually happens. Like these odds feel kind of high to me based on how much randomness is in college basketball.
Yeah. And really you can see it from 3 to 5. I mean, like there's only 4 teams with more than 10 expected points. You won't see that anywhere else, I don't think, in any other sport. You're going to see a lot more likelihood of the top teams finishing in the points. Gonzaga and Baylor are pretty strong this year and have pretty good odds. But like, yeah, NBA, you have like 10 teams that are in double-digit expected points. They're expected to be, if not in the final 8, a 50% chance to be there, basically.
I also wanted to pull up because our guy Sam Hoppen, he had a tweet. He's already grinding Omnifantasy content.
Yeah,
and that had to make you excited.
Oh yeah.
Let me get this pulled up because I might need to use this to make my pick here.
I mean, I looked at it when I made mine. I know as much as the next guy, but
look at Sam already crushing it.
Yeah.
I know.
So value over replacement player, I'm assuming not considering flexes. I don't know. He might be able to tell us in the chat, but he's looking at, a baseline replacement player and how much the expected points on the site are giving value over that. So that's pretty sweet. Yeah.
And so this is interesting. I do think so. My 2 things that I'm weighing here, I feel like the Nets are a good value. Paul went a little off the board and drafted the Bucks. But then another thing I want you to talk about is this strategy that Kevin's been doing in these leagues where he's been doing this double tap of the WNBA teams. And why don't maybe explain why he's been doing that or what the thought process is there.
Yeah, it's the veteran savvy move. So everyone has to pick one team from each sport or sport league. In WNBA, there's 12 teams in the entire league. And so in the one draft that we did, we have 11 drafters in it. What that means is as soon as one drafter flexes a WNBA team, no one else can flex because it would make it impossible for everyone else to draft at least one WNBA team. And so what Kevin did at the 1-2 turn, he took the 2 top WNBA teams in this other draft. And because it is only a 12-team league, the likelihood of finishing top 8 and getting into some points is very high. I think it's sort of a high floor move. He also has a really strong likelihood of getting the winner, I would assume, by getting the top teams there. But yeah, he locked in the only WNBA flex in that draft. And then in another draft, I think we have 9, and he did it as well. There will be 3 flexes in that before the draft system will actually not allow anyone else to take WNBA at that point unless they haven't taken it yet. It will reserve enough WNBA teams for everyone to take one. So Kevin has been rushing to the flex in these limited sports that have, higher expected points all the way down the board.
So do you think
want to win the flex?
Yeah, he's winning the flex, exactly.
Do you think it changes anything if you can't get the top team with the double tap? Like, would it not be smart if I tried it here with the Aces and Mystics because I can't get the Storm?
I think it probably depends on the sport, and I don't know WNBA well enough.
Yeah, Ben, specifically talk about WNBA because I did this chasing Kevin in that 9-team league.
Did you do the Aces Mystics?
I did the Mystics Sparks.
So
Wait, was that at the 1-2 turn or the 2-3 turn?
No, it was later than that. I think,
Okay.
Aren't you in that league too?
I don't hate it as much. I'm debating here at the 1-2 turn.
So,
yeah, okay, it was later than that.
The short answer on my WNBA expertise is we haven't had WNBA because my main league is 16 people. It's too big to have WNBA because not everyone can draft one. So last year is the first year I did any drafts with WNBA. I don't have like several years of where I can kind of comment on it. I think the Storm were one of the top options last year. I don't think they were the first pick last year, but I don't really know over like multiple years whether it's likely that the top teams in January wind up winning the league. It seems like the odds are pretty like the bottom 4 teams have really low expected points for it only being a 12-team league. They have really long odds. If you go look at their futures odds, it seems like it's a pretty top heavy league. I don't hate it. It does to me feel a little bit like you're capping your upside though. Anytime you're flexing super early. One thing I'll say on that is over the several years that I've done this, it seems like to win the league, you kind of need the most 80s. You need the most champion. You get 80 points for a champion. You need the most 80s, or you need the most 80s plus 50s. Like targeting 30 pointers and 20 pointers, which there's ways you can do that in the middle rounds, like maybe Champions League. It's like, this team has a really good matchup in the round of 16. They look locked into 20 points, but then they can get beat the next round. There's a random draw every round. They might get matched up against like Bayern Munich and get beat. Doing those low upside moves, very like fantasy football, I don't think is really smart. I'm basically at all picks in my Omnifantasy draft, just like fantasy football. I'm trying to win a champion. I'm trying to get an 80-point pick, and the most 80-point picks will probably win it for you. So if you do 2 WNBAs early, you're taking away significant win potential from doing 2 picks in multiple leagues with top option, top
The
odds.
other thing I've noticed just from the drafts I've been in is that the WNBA seems to fall further than you would expect based on value of a replacement or expected points. Like I was considering taking the Sparks in round 3. I didn't. I actually took Ohio State after having taken Alabama. So that might have been minus EV after what Ben just said, trying to go for winners. But I waited and the Sparks fell to me the next round. So,
and Lawrence just pointed out, he's right. These are 12-person leagues. So I can't.
No one can flex them.
Okay. All right. So there goes that strategy. I think I am going to take the Nets here. I think I took them earlier in another draft.
I took them like 105 or something.
Yeah.
That seems like good value.
Well, Paul opened up the door because he took the Bucks normally where the Nets are going based on expected points. They're an interesting use case, right? Because they have the 3 superstars and their offense is insane right now, but they have like no defense. It still seems like the Lakers would beat them in the NBA Finals, but they seem pretty live to get there.
Yeah, they're an interesting team for another reason because their record isn't great right now either.
Yeah.
And people have asked why is now the best time to draft? And I don't know if I hit on this last week. I talked about some other potential times you could draft, but it's best for the calendar, which is something I talked about last week. But also it's best because the sports that are in season, the odds don't seem to be affected very much by their regular season compared to other sports. So the NBA, the Nets don't have that great of a record, but because they have all the star power and because it's a deep playoff structure with 7-game series, they're still the favorite in the East because they're the best team. In other sports, it becomes challenging if you're 500 at this point in the season, and it's not super deep in the NBA season, but you start to lose, your odds start to fall. Your futures odds start to fall. Like the Major League Baseball, it's harder to make the playoffs. If you're not doing as well in the regular season, it's tricky. And then the other two sports that are really actively in the middle of the regular season are college basketball and NHL. And their regular season doesn't matter because they both have notoriously like crazy playoff structures, right? Like the March Madness bracket and Stanley Cup finals are really crazy too. So if you look at futures odds, they might sway a little bit in college basketball and NHL, but I don't think it really matters all that much. It's sort of just like flavor of the month, but the playoffs are going to determine everything. And in NBA, they don't move. You know, a few years back when LeBron was on the Cavs, they were struggling in the regular season. Their odds did not move. They were the second highest odds, just like the Nets are now. The market seemed to just reflect talent in the NBA.
So looking at my next two decisions here, I think a couple options that are interesting to me. NCAA football here. So we have Alabama and Clemson off the board. Ohio State next. Pretty big drop off in expected points down to the Sooners there, a spread of 9. And then if I also look at the UCL, I still have Bayern Munich up here at the top, and they have a pretty big edge, a spread of 8 here down to Liverpool. And then there's also the WNBA teams here. So if you were advising me, what would be your guys' thoughts of those kind of 3 options?
Pat, you go first.
Well, just checked. Bayern has not played yet, so we don't have that information. But that would be where I would lean to go with Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
Nick asking me about the tennis options, and I have done Nadal in the second round before. He is available.
Ooh. I think I'd go Nadal.
You think?
Nadal was like a 103 in the league I was in with Ben.
So I'll tell you.
104.
I mean, I can do some screen shares, show you guys some stuff. I don't know what we want to show, but one thing I was thinking is I could show you some of the drafts that I've been in. I've been seeing Bayern Munich go in the top like 5-6 picks in every draft. They went 105 in my oldest league. Nadal went 113. I think that was the latest I've seen Nadal go, though.
Is Friedman just like a real big Nadal head?
I don't think he's a bad pick. I think he's a really good bet to finish in the top. So there's the 4 tournaments aggregated, and he's so good at the French on clay. He's really likely to win that tournament. And if he wins that one tournament, he's really likely to finish in the top 3 or 4 in his sport. I think it's a little trickier for him at this stage of his career to have the potential to get the 80 overall because he hasn't really won any other majors for a few years.
Yeah. I'm torn. How much randomness is there in Euro?
I think it's pretty random. I looked.
That's single elimination, isn't it?
So that's an interesting one. It's every 4 years. The last time they played was the first time they had gone to 24 teams or countries. The time before was only 16 countries, so it was kind of tough to make a judgment there. Their knockout round was a round further up. Fewer teams advanced. The last time they had the 24, they have 6 pools of 4. And all the top 2 teams in every pool advance, like in the World Cup, and then some third-place teams also advance. What happened in the next round, it's single elimination. When you get to the knockout round, you have to win 1 knockout round to get to the final 8. And like Wales made the quarterfinals. Wales made the semis. Iceland made the quarters. And Portugal, who wasn't like a top favorite, they have Ronaldo, but they weren't up there with like Spain and some of these other elite teams. They ended up winning the whole tournament. So there were a few upsets 4 years ago in the Euro. I don't know, I don't know how it'll play out this time. The other thing I look at with Euro is the pools and where they'll line up in the knockout round. If you go to the Wikipedia page for Euro, it'll tell you it has a bracket. And so like France and England could like meet in the first round of the knockout, and they're 2 of the favorites. There's ways they could meet. And so, yeah, some teams have easier paths than others.
My guy Lou was asking about the scoring. I just posted the rules here. I also have it up here. So you see the 80, 50, 30, 20, and then there's some slight tweaks for kind of the various sports nuances and how some of those work. Yeah. So yeah. And that's where I think it's interesting, right? Because the expected points functions like ADP. We naturally gravitate toward the most expected points, but there's these quirks to how these sports work to where the more I think about it, going with Nadal here, and kind of his dominance relative to the field versus the randomness of the Euro leagues probably makes sense.
Well, I was just talking about two different things, man.
Yeah. I was talking about Euro. Champions League's a little different. They're already in the round of 16.
I thought that's what you were talking about.
No. They're already in the round of 16, and we already know that matchup. But what happens is every ensuing round, they do a random draw. So we don't know their path to the final. But they're the favorites right now, and they play one of the longest odds teams. So all they have to do is get past that team, and they will lock in 20 points. They're already like on the doorstep. But so are all the Champions League teams are on the doorstep. So you have to consider that. But I do like Bayern Munich as a team that will likely get 20, and they're considered one of the top teams in the tournament. So even if they do get a bad draw, they can still beat Liverpool or Paris Saint-Germain. Herman?
I think so. I think it's Germain.
Germain to me.
Yeah.
Eric Blair says you're going to be a soccer thought leader by the summer.
Yeah.
I've learned if you just talk with confidence, you can just be saying absolute bullshit. I really think Atletico Madrid, I think they're a young team that's on the rise. Some intense battles with their fellow.
True.
I have seen. So what I was going to say about ADP, I'm in a few different leagues. I'm in a league with some of my old CBS colleagues. I'm in another league with you guys, a couple other leagues with you guys. I have not seen Nadal go ahead of Bayern Munich. That doesn't mean I think it's wrong. I've taken Nadal in the first round in prior years. I'm a little bit wary of his age, and like he could get hurt.
Man.
But
Friedman took him at the 105, at the 104, and then
he's
Bayern
a fine
Munich
value here. But Bayern Munich is a team that has gone top 6, top 7 in every draft I've been in. Is sort of.
They still have Mueller, Lewandowski, some of these greats from the Germany World Cup teams.
Yeah, they're just as old as Nadal, probably though.
Who are some of these? Oh, they have Neuer, the goalkeeper, legend. They have Boateng. Oh, remember him. I think I'm sold. I need a piece of this team, and I need it bad.
I think I just took them in a draft too. I took Man City. Those are the top 2 teams, I think.
Welcome.
Although PSG just dominated Barca. Pat was talking about that. Barcelona lost 4-1. And so Paris Saint-Germain, their odds shot up in the last day. Davis took them in our draft. I thought it was a sharp pick.
All right. I made my picks. Brooklyn Nets, Bayern Munich. Brian, you are on the clock.
Some good value right there. Both those are like mid first round picks usually.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Welcome to Ship Chasing Omnifantasy Pete League. You let any value slip, I'm going to scoop it up.
Pete's a value drafter now.
Yeah, they both went. They both went
all day.
They both went top 8 in my oldest league. They both went top 5 in the RotoViz league. So yeah, there's some leagues where you just got at the turn 2 of the top 5 picks.
Let's go. And I should also mention a cool thing. We're doing a little buy-in for our individual league, and half of the proceeds are going to go to the Chris Wessling GoFundMe, with that money going to Lakeisha and Link. And then we're also collectively going to figure out a master prize for whoever wins across all 3 leagues, because Ben, the way it works with different teams, we will have a unique winner from all 3 of them based on total points.
Yeah, that's something we should look at, old leagues. And so that's also why we did 12-team leagues for all 3, same sport, same draft rounds. We have, controlled all the variables the same. But yeah, you like last year in my 16-team league, and that's a pretty big one. The leader right now, and it's not quite done because the Australian Open got pushed back a couple of weeks, so that's still got to finish up. But the leader's at 280 points, so it's 80 for any individual winner. Typically, I see the winner be in a 12-team league in like the 350 point range. If you get like 3 to 4 overall winners, you're going to be right up at the top. But what's cool is since we're doing 3 different drafts, all the same settings, somebody in one of these drafts is going to have more points than all 36 other drafters, right? Somebody might get 400 in one of these. One year, one of my buddies got over 500 points. He picked just a ton of winners. So, we'll have an overall ship chasing winner from these 3 drafts.
Yep. And I guess I'll say, if you didn't get in one of these drafts and you're looking to get in one, same thing as last time, drop your name in the comments and maybe we can help you guys get organized with another one of these. I think you just got to move a little quick and make sure you get this going so you can get everything squared away before all the leagues are firing. Pat and Ben, do you guys have any decisions coming up in your leagues?
I have a pick. Pat just picked that UCL pick he was talking about in the RotoViz League. And so let me consult my other screen. Let me consult my ceiling screen over here.
What do you think about that pick? I had to fire that off right before the show. And it could be totally wrong, but
it's all dependent on the round and who's available and stuff. And the truth is, I'm in like 4 drafts that are running concurrently right now, and I have no idea. I was, I had like spreadsheets I was tracking this stuff in, particularly for my first league that we did kind of the test run for this year. Got that first draft in, everything went fine. At this point, I have no idea. I honestly have no idea what would have been a good value here, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. But I'm gonna start clicking around and getting an idea of it.
Ben, will you actually share the Chrome tab? I think the text is just a little easier to read if you do the tab instead of the whole window.
Okay. Is it the ceiling thing?
It has nothing to do with the ceiling thing. It has to do when you do the Chrome share, you selected, it has whole window, browser, or tab. Yeah.
He's got to explain to a boomer. There, here we go. This is my tab.
There we go. I think that's a little better for people. You can
this is where we're at. I'm still going to move this tab over to this other screen so I can see you guys and that. Yes, look at that. This is as functional as it gets, really.
There you go. The war room, the Omnifantasy war room, where Ben makes all of his picks from leagues across the globe.
What I will do, I showed you guys after the show last week my little spreadsheet that I made, and you guys thought it was cool. I think it's super janky, but it is. Can you see that? Oh, how do I switch tabs? This is riveting TV, right? This is what you guys are here for, is me clicking around and not knowing what I'm doing.
No, you keep clicking around. I'll keep doing the promo for his name is Ben Gretsch. He started as a fantasy analyst, and then he thought, what if we expanded fantasy beyond the world of football to the world's parts unknown? The Australian Tennis League, European soccer leagues, the Eskimos digging holes in the ice. We have created a fantasy system for it all. All right, I think you're good now.
You got a screenshot of Ben clicking around on his tabs, right? So we can get that going viral next week.
Yeah.
I'm next for sure. The way that I set this up, this is from years ago, and I've just kept rolling it over. You can see, like, I don't know, some of this is really old. I haven't updated it, but I organized it by sport, and then I did a priority. This is for my main league, and this was a copy. It says 2022 because I copied it over for next year right after that draft started. I took my first pick. It was Champions League. I said I was done. We can't flex Champions League in a 16-team league. And then I had everything set up for like the second round. Anyway, I'll update this next year. But this is where I was at. In the second round, I was looking at tennis is very high. We just talked about like Djokovic and Nadal. Those guys are top options. NASCAR is one I told you guys last week. Nobody ever wants to pick them, but the top picks seem to finish in the top 8 at a pretty high clip. And they seem to at least be profitable top picks. I had Euro high, and my note here is it gets thin very early. There's sort of some top teams, and there's also some really bad teams in the Euro. So these were like my priority sports that I wanted to look at based on the odds. I pulled in all the odds, and I'd looked through various, tier breaks and all this stuff, highlighted teams that I thought were interesting, whatever. And then another column I want to point out is this flex pick column. What sports do I think it makes sense to flex? Like the NHL and MLB, historically, there have been some teams that are a little bit longer odds that can make runs. That's not as likely in the NBA. So NBA, I say no. Like I'm going to take one NBA team. I think college basketball and college football, because they're so deep sports and they still have favorites at the top, are hard ones to flex. There's just so many more options that can run out and do well. So anyway, this is how I set it up and just wrote some notes and all this stuff.
Did you just duplicate this from your spreadsheet where you review various strains of marijuana?
Why do you say that?
Very high,
Oh.
medium. The very lows are more of an indica kind of body high. Yeah.
I watched Pete like bite his tongue on that joke for a full minute. It's pretty great.
Very similar spreadsheet, yes.
I love it. You were also like, this is just like a really janky spreadsheet I threw together. And then he goes over to the second tab. He's like, here's a, color, conditional formatted tier of every single guy in the database.
Right. I have notes for every sport, whether or not I want to flex, whether I want to take them early. Some are like NBA I wrote.
Is God talking to him?
Dear God, should I do Nadal or Bayern Munich?
Hey, pick this guy. NBA, it says no flex, earlier punt, right? So comments like that, like tennis, no flex, earlier punt. Because it's like you take a top guy or you can, and I wrote, or maybe semi-punt. And then there's other ones where I'm like, in the middle rounds, I want to hit them, like MLB and NHL. I want to still get a decent team. I did this round by round thing. I want to get a decent team in MLB and NHL, but I don't need to take one super high typically. But I mean, this is like a guide. It's not how I actually do it, but it is my.
You should sell this as an Omnifantasy masterclass by Ben Gretsch. $2.99 PDF.
Dude,
add on to your Substack.
There's like not enough people even playing Omnifantasy.
Are you kidding? I mean, we're drumming up business here. The long con is coming into play. We're all funneling you into a $2.99 PDF. You have to buy.
Right. I'll have the content market cornered. That's for sure.
That's definitely
no, but honestly, it's been fun. And like I said, you can engage with it at whatever level you want. If you want to be like Pat and looking at, second units in the European Soccer League, you can do that. If you're like me and just seeing where's the biggest spread in expected points and firing it off, you can do that too.
Well, let me let you guys into my to my research process a little bit, because Ben brings up tennis. You either take Nadal, Djokovic, or you punt. I think there's another option, because I started Googling some dudes, and when I saw the YouTube highlights of Daniil Medvedev, I knew I was drafting that dude.
Most of Pat's nights are spent just Googling dudes, so this isn't really that issue.
I recall when you were messaging and saying that you took him because he's not a grunter. You were anti-grunter.
Oh, there's a dude on this list that grunts, and I just won't have it. I won't have it.
I thought you were okay.
You thought I was pro-grunt? No, well, in all seriousness, Dominic Thiem, every time his racket touches the ball, he goes, "Ugh." What, am I supposed to watch that shit?
You've been grinding film on this dude?
I mean, I literally watched like a YouTube highlight. It didn't take that long.
Okay, all right. What, you like what you see? How strong that backhand
Pull up Medvedev.
Oh, God. We're going to get this video delisted from Medvedev?
I'd rather watch Medvedev than get ad money.
Okay, let's do it.
Pete's never been less enthusiastic about anything.
So that's one where the notes are definitely a couple years old. That's the way it was in like 2019. That's how tennis was. Djokovic was the best, like the heavy favorite to win every major except the French, and so you had Nadal, who was pretty much locked into that major, and then if he won another one, he could still win the 80. But those guys are getting older, and
he's awesome for his little size.
This kid is 6 years old, and you're trying to draft him in the first
Don't judge
round?
a book by its cover, man.
This kid's grunting. He's going,
No, he doesn't grunt. He doesn't.
Okay,
grunt.
he doesn't grunt. All right.
Thiem's the grunter.
Wait, which one is he?
Do
either of you guys play tennis ever?
Not really.
I played a buddy a couple, like maybe I guess it certainly was before the pandemic, so maybe it was 2 years ago now, and he beat me 6-0, 6-0.
I took a tennis class both in high school and in college.
What do you think? What do you think of these guys?
Are you good?
No, I suck, but it was fun, and I conceptually like the sport a lot.
Yeah, I just can't hit the ball well.
Yeah,
I hit it too hard.
I'm really good at ping pong.
It's totally different than like I grew up playing baseball, a lot of baseball. It's very different. You have to have a lot more finesse. I just swing really hard.
Do you guys ever get stoned and watch tennis and think it's like they're standing on a ping pong table?
Yeah.
I don't have those types of thoughts. No.
It's pretty great, right?
He's great.
What's on Djokovic there?
Because in all honesty, what are we doing here? We're playing a bunch of different sports. We're investing in a bunch of different sports that we don't watch. So find something that you're going to enjoy rooting for.
I'm gonna make my pick. I'm gonna show you guys the pick that Pat should have made.
Oh,
and it is
you reach, Pat. Ben teaches.
We're in the 8th round here. This is not anything strategy. This is just this dude is really good. Brooks Koepka. I mean, I know he's been hurt.
Roids.
Yeah, and so do I. I know about those injuries. He's been struggling through them. Old Koepka and those knees, right?
Brooks Koepka at 809. This guy, he won the 80 in golf in Omni 3 of the last 4 years. He didn't win last year, but he won 2017, 2018, 2019 because he's been racking up majors over the last 4 years. So, boom.
Yeah, that does seem like a very good pick. Why did Kevin not give him more expected points that I knew who he was? Come on, Kevin.
You take ownership when you do your own grinding and watching, film, and then when you don't like the pick, you're like, why didn't he have more expected points? I would have taken it. Ooh, Tim Daly saying Justin Thomas would have been a better pick.
Honestly, Tim Daly probably knows a lot better than I do.
Well, isn't there actually kind of there's probably a psychological phenomenon with this where the sports better, you probably overvalue those points relative to the field because you have confidence in where they fit in with that sport. But unless you are a genius Mensa level across all these sports, you don't actually know how to slot them in through all of them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things over the course of, multiple years doing this that I've picked up. And I'm going to write a post in my Substack. I've wrote a couple kind of laying out the basics.
You still want people to keep subscribing. It's you've been doing like 6 posts a week, right?
Yeah. Just grinding them out. But no, there are 2 Omnifantasy ones this week. And tomorrow I'm going to write one that's a little bit more sport by sport. Some of the lessons I've learned from past results so that people have some like data to play with. Like, where winners have come from drafts that have happened in January and February in the past. And I think that's a big thing. Yeah. Like the odds are going to be not the same, but reasonably similar. There's going to be favorites. There's going to be long shots. That's just like sort of how the market works. But there's sports that consistently, and this is something you can take and go play some futures bets, like on certain sports. There's definitely sports where long shots have a shot to win. And we've seen it over the last several years. And there's other sports where they like essentially don't. They don't even get to the semifinals with any kind of frequency. So some of the odds are more fragile. And I was comparing them to fantasy football positions last week. But yeah, some of them are like running backs. They're fragile. You're going to have busts in the top, and there's some late picks that can win. And so you can build your draft strategy around that. It doesn't mean it's going to be right, but that is probably one of the biggest sort of edges is trying to think through where what the odds are, what odds are most believable or most likely to hold up.
All right, here's a fun topic. What is if there was a sport within this where you were going to go zero UCL, zero WNBA, which is the sport to punt? And if you were to go robust, I mean, we saw the robust WNBA strategy. What would be the sport to do?
Let me take a stab here on the fragile one. I want to see what you think, Ben. But from my experience, very limited experience, I'm going to say that it would be MLS is the one you punt.
Zero MLS.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
That's what I say every time I'm watching European soccer. I mean, it's just not the same.
I pretty much, don't take MLS until the double-digit rounds in any draft. I don't really see why. There's been some pretty big. I think a favorite one recently. The Sounders won a couple the year before last, and I think they were runners-up last year, and they've always been up there in the odds. But like last year's winner, the Columbus Crew, were a late-round pick for sure.
And what would be the robust? We mentioned the WNBA.
I think it's NASCAR, dude. I mean,
Ooh.
it really is like, so the way their structure is, they start their playoffs with 16 drivers, and they do each of these like stages they do from there on are 3 races, and then they cut 4 drivers out. They go from 16 down to 12, down to 8, down to 4. The last 4 are all in one race. And so that is highly variable. Like, just getting into that 4 is tough enough. And then that last 4 is one race. And I've never even watched these races. As far as I understand, it's not just 4 people racing, it's everyone racing, just by looking at the results, because some of them have not finished 1, 2, 3, 4. And some years, one of them will finish 10th. But that's how they determine the final champion, is this one race to win it all. But in that race, and even working backward, they have teams. They have like Penske Motorsports and all this stuff. Again, I'm not a NASCAR, I don't watch the sport at all. But they have teams. They have like lead drivers. They're supporting them throughout the season to some degree. They have the best cars. They have the best tech, whatever. At least that's my understanding. Whatever. You can go back and look at the results. The fact is, guys like Kevin Harvick, guys like Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, Chase Elliott's kind of the upstart. He won it last year. But most of these other dudes, Denny Hamlin, they're in it every year. They're in the final 8, the top 4. They get to that final race. They're not – it's kind of wild to see who's going to win that final race and get the 80. But if you wanted to take 2 from a sport early, I actually think NASCAR is probably your best bet.
There you go. Robust NASCAR. Pat, you were tilted the other day. I took Blaney, right?
Yeah, I was going to take Blaney. And I thought – I just – it's so hard to predict with all this stuff, but I just thought Blaney would get back to me. He took him right before me. So – when you do some research and you find a NASCAR driver you're excited about, and then someone snipes you, and you got to go back to the NASCAR drawing board. That's not a good feeling.
Yeah. Which one was this right here?
That's
oh yeah. I took Medvedev there.
You guys are both very.
There you go, dude.
Medvedev.
Wait, is this we're in so many of these leagues I can't keep track. Was this where I took Blaney, or is this another one?
I think you took Blaney in the first one, the Rotoviz one.
Oh yeah, the Rotoviz one.
Because it's a little later.
Oh, yeah.
Eric made an interesting point about making NBA and the Champions League your robust picks, because we have more information about those odds right now. The odds, it would stand to reason, would be a little bit
Yeah, I think that's fair. The NBA, for me, this is a 2021 take, which most of my Omnifantasy takes are at least a couple of years old. I think I've realized that if you don't get one of the top teams, like if you don't get the team that LeBron's on or any of these really good players, you probably should just punt it till the very end. Because at that point, I talked earlier about how the 80 and the 50 are sort of what you're playing for. Even when the Raptors kind of came out of nowhere and won the NBA Finals, in my big league, they were a second-round pick. They still had top 5 odds in like January. And that was sort of thought of as an upset. But it really does come down to like where the talent is. Kawhi Leonard was on their team, so they were still, I think, the second highest odds in the East when we drafted in January, and then they went on and won it. It's not like they were a 6 seed that came and won the NBA Finals. So I kind of feel like if you don't get, you can go robust. Maybe you could take the Nets and the Lakers if it worked out that way. But I think if you miss this first tier, you're sort of just playing for like 20 or 30 points. If you take like the Nuggets or somebody, like they're not really likely to make the finals in almost any circumstance. So
yeah, the way you'd have to play it would be like if somehow the Nets fell to you like they did to Pete, maybe you could have gone with like the Nets and the Clippers or something, Pete.
To double tap it?
Or you could have done like if you go the Lakers early, then you could take an East team that falls back to you and try to play it that way. But that's pretty specific. You're really putting a lot of your draft capital on one very specific outcome.
Right. And it, again, too, like when you're trying to win, right, you're trying to bank as many 80-pointers as you can. And if you do, even if you get a 1-2, like just theoretically, you want the 280s versus the first and the second, which is what you're capped to when you double tap in the first round.
You're capped to 130. A few years back, I got the 101, and that was back when the Warriors were just so dominant. I took them 101 first pick, and then I took the Cavs at the 2-3 turn, and they met in the finals. I got the 130. I nailed it, and I still didn't win, because that's the other part of it is like you can get 130 points out of just NBA, but that's not going to get you to 300 or 350 like I was saying you need total. You still have to hit on a ton of different sports. So I kind of feel like you make your decision on one sport early in the draft, and then you don't necessarily double tap. I probably wouldn't go robust with almost any sport.
What's like the lowest total that you could realistically win with?
This 280 in the 16-team league there's a bunch of other people in the 200. Team. Yeah, and there's a bunch of other people in the 200s. It's the lowest I've seen. And we had 2 canceled sports last year too, right? So it does depend on how many sports you're using, but if you're using 13 points, I think you probably need 350. That's probably the lowest.
Okay. All right, so yeah, double tapping probably before like the 5-6 turn is probably not a good idea then.
Early, yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think it's strategically that you should make a decision to punt certain sports and just make them your last picks and use your flexes in the middle rounds where you're like I in a lot of my drafts have done. I was talking about MLB and NHL, liking them in the middle rounds. I've like had a block from like pick 7 to 10 where I've taken 2 MLBs and 2 NHLs in some drafts before because I'm just like I'm going to take multiple shots on these that I think I still want a pretty good team that looks like they're going to be in the playoffs. But I think they also have a chance to win their championship. I'm going to take a couple from each sport.
I got to make a quick detour, guys. There's a tweet that just came across my desk, and I'm so unbelievably triggered by it. And Pat's going to be triggered by it too. Matt Friedman says, I don't want to brag, but today I listened to a part of a podcast at 3.5x speed.
Why?
If anyone has ever even tried to listen to a podcast at 2x speed, it's basically chipmunks.
It really is. There's nothing enjoyable about it.
I'm now like a 1.3, 1.4 guy. 2x, like you're kind of crazy to me. 3.5x. What the hell is going on, Friedman? I am so shook by this.
That's crazy talk. 3.5x, you'd have to be like laser focused to even absorb any of it.
Screw this. We're going to my podcast app to listen to a podcast at 3.5x.
Yeah, we're definitely doing that.
I can't believe this. And
I'm
you know
very curious what this sounds like.
I mean, what the hell?
I got a request to publicly shame Taylor0093. That's your Twitter handle. Dude, make a pick. Dude or gal, I don't know, but make a pick. In my ship chasing league. If you're listening, go to omnifantasy.com and pick.
What we could do is just clip this part of the show and then tweet that to this person.
All right, I've pulled up a clip of RotoViz Radio so we could hear Friedman talking at 3.5 speed. Let's see if I can even crank this up. I've never even gone this. This is Pocket Cast that I use. We're still going.
Is it going to let you go?
It's not going to let me go to 3.5. Let's see what he sounds like at 3. Tell me if you guys can hear this.
And I can't say it's like unwarranted, but he was really productive this year. Yeah, so put some things in perspective here. He played his foul ball at Ole Miss as a freshman.
I didn't catch any words.
67 reps, 850 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. Then in 2020 as a junior, 86 reps, 1,193 yards, 8 touchdowns. This is a guy that's not going to have those gaudy yards per reception totals. Finishes his career 12.92. Did rush 14 times, 64 yards, and a touchdown as a junior. Went up to receiving dominator in his sophomore year, 0.45. Then his junior year, 0.36. Not quite as impressive of a profile. But I still think that some people will want to make a compelling case for more. Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, he was productive in that final season. He's more of a slot receiver, and so there might be questions about how that translates to the NFL. Whether team would actually want to spend a high pick on him. The one thing I do like about him is that he is going to be 21 years old as a rookie, so you do have that going on. Entering the league as an early player, and was a legit 4-star recruit entering college. So I'm assuming he has some athleticism there. We kind of have to wait to see how he tests on the smaller side, which you expect given that he plays in the slot. But I think there's real potential there for him. Now, I think we're positive here because we didn't talk about it in last episode. But when you're evaluating players, Matt, obviously there's some mixture of looking at what you know about these players athletically, looking at the evaluation they would have entering college football, what that looked like. When
what's going on with this?
What's the point?
Specific traits that a player needs to have to do well in the algorithm that sits in your mind. Yes, so there's an algorithm in my mind, and then there's something that we loosely call an algorithm in spreadsheets.
Your brain's gonna explode.
In his first 3 years.
That was 3.
Wow.
Not even 3.5x. What is wrong with you, Matthew Friedman? What is wrong with you?
I can't wait to listen to this part at 3.5x. The 3x at 3.5x.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I saw that tweet. It stopped me in my tracks. If someone was, I'd allow someone to brag about 2.5x. Like maybe 3.5x is just it's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's crazy.
I really want to know what podcast he so desperately needed that information, but
Part
needed
of a
it.
podcast.
It like
It wasn't even a whole podcast, just part of it.
so Friedman just listening to a podcast and it's just like, and now we want to do the history of the world. And Friedman's like, I better just get this down real quick.
Oh, we got 5 minutes.
I mean, it's the Matrix. He's just trying to download the history of the world into his head.
Oh my God.
my
All right.
God.
Sorry for that detour. I was shook. I was extremely shook.
20 Rick says he listens to EDM on 2X. That's insane.
Oh, I remember. Yeah. Because Pat, you're a 1X guy, right?
I'm usually 1X. I'll go to 1.5, you know, if I need to. That's my version of the Matrix is 1.5.
Okay.
I don't know how you could do 3.5.
That's what I am too. I'm like exactly like Pat. I usually just listen to the podcast the way it was recorded.
You know, the way people talk to each other.
Yeah, sort of normal. But you can go to 1.5 if you want to get through it a little quicker.
1.5, once you listen to it for a while, does start to sound natural.
It does.
So I don't have any problem with 1.5. But if you go to 2, there's nothing natural about that.
No. What about 3? What about 3.5?
That's inaudible. Like literally, I couldn't make out what they were saying at 3.
No. That's like saying you had sex and then like they pan away and you see like a blow up doll like in the bag. Like you could say it was, but it wasn't. I don't know about that analogy.
I don't understand what you were talking about. I was like, all right, cool, man. Let's move on.
You're trying to say that like they said they listened to the podcast, but they didn't actually listen to the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the authentic experience, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
if you really think about the analogy, I think it kind of holds up.
Yeah, maybe a little bit if you really, really think about it. My issue with pods, I get distracted. If I listen to like 2X though, I need to just sit in a corner and stare at a wall and just focus on the pod. Like it's like how like I'm gonna miss everything if I. It's insane.
100%. Even at 1.5, I'm like, I need to focus.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed if I drive, I can normally listen a little faster because that's the one thing I'm focusing on. But like you said, if I'm doing stuff around the house in multitasking, I have to have it at like 1X, 1.2, because if it's any faster, I'm missing so much.
You're going to miss like 10 minutes and not realize it. Like,
and then you rewind anyways. You're like, why was I listening to this fast anyway?
Yeah, exactly.
So what we're saying is, if we catch any of you guys listening to Ship Chasing at more than 1.5x, we'll give you 1.5. But if I catch any of you speeding down the highway, listening to Ship Chasing at 1.6, you're booted. You're booted.
Speed limit of 1.5.
Speed limit of 1.5.
Put it in the show notes.
Yes. Warning. All right. Any other oh, is this Ben getting beer from the kids? Classic segment.
Who's this from?
That was my 9-year-old. It hasn't been
wow.
my 9-year-old for a while. It's usually the little one or it was my wife last time. So they're all, big supporters of my habit.
So do you text? Do you send a text saying, hey, Coors Light? And then
I literally texted my wife, beer me, and then I wrote, please, I love you.
Sam, I used to listen to the CBS pod on 1.5x and got weirded out talking to Ben in person for the first time.
Oh, wow. That's really funny.
I've had that experience too. I find myself talking very fast too. And I think part of it has been consuming podcast at 1.5x.
Do you think it makes you smarter?
No.
You're processing faster.
That's what you tell yourself in your head, but then I realize how many things, like the way I personally learn, like the most learning I have is when I'm reading a book and I'm taking notes or I'm writing stuff down, I'm interacting with it, or I'll talk out loud with someone right after it, trying to because nothing lets you know how well you understand something more than trying to explain it to someone else.
Yes.
And you quickly find out, oh, I actually don't understand this very well.
Like, for example, Pat Fitzmaurice had me on his podcast right before this, and I explained that in Omnifantasy, you only care about the top 4 finishers in each sport, and it's actually the top 8. Still hadn't quite mastered it yet.
Ben sent you on the Omnifantasy promo trail, and you're already botching the rules.
Pat literally goes, so like before we got into anything, he was like, so did Gretch pull you into this whole Omnifantasy business? I was like, I'm commissioning a league, Pat.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't it's this weird thing, right? Where if you're listening to a podcast purely for entertainment, it seems weird. Like I found myself, I wouldn't listen to comedy podcasts at any speed because the whole point is like timing and inflection is so important with it. If you're just digesting information about maybe Kyle Pitts' breakout age or something, I can understand ratcheting up the speed.
So the pod I did with Davis, you mean?
I hate to break it to you guys. You were saying, like, can you process it faster? We're all just dying. Like, this is what Douche wrote about in his book Game Plan, where he was like talking about getting newer or getting younger head coaches. Like, our processing ability is at its peak at like 25 or 30, and we're just declining. Like, we can't like get better at processing stuff. Like if you're listening to it fast, man. I think you're just a showman. You think that you're doing something cool, but you're just missing a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, man. I need to listen to it nice and slow and actually understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to kind of listen. I like to have something very mindless, or even if I'm like walking around or doing something semi-active, taking notes to me. If I take notes when I'm trying to learn something or even just for fantasy purposes, I stop listening. So it ruins it.
I don't know about you guys too, but I feel like right now too, there's lots of things I'm interested in. I have an addictive personality, but I'm also a dilettante in a lot of ways too, where you like sampling all of this stuff. And right now, especially with all of everything that's going on in crypto and DeFi and NFTs, I feel like to make smart investments, I want to be an expert on something, but I'm constantly getting pulled in all of these other directions. My attention is constantly, and it's like I'm having a hard time focusing on something when there's so much going on.
Are you still meditating?
I am. I do.
Does that help?
I'm the same way though.
It does, like in the moment, like I do really appreciate it, but then once the chips start flying, like literally my thing today was like, try to take out a few moments throughout the day to just acknowledge like, hey, I'm present in this moment. And I didn't even think of that until right now, since meditating at 8:30 a.m. this morning. So I don't know how much of it is bleeding over.
I've been doing some meditation too, working out more this off season so far. And same way, it feels great in the moment. And same way as what you were saying, where like when I'm listening to pods, it's really hard to multitask. I think that's what all our wives tend to say about us anyway, but like men are not particularly good at multitasking. But
yeah, my whole deal is hyper focusing. Like when
you're good at that.
Yeah, and to me it's like finding that zone where I can just literally, where time flies by and I'm like super focused on a task, and getting to that spot can be difficult at times. And so, yeah, any type of multitasking type of stuff that I'm trying to do prevents me from getting there in the first place.
And it's been super tough. I'm actually this similar way. And I've been reading that book Flow right now about flow states too. And I know what the flow state feels like, and it feels fucking good. and I'm not finding myself getting there a lot of times these days. Like the last time
you can't force it. I mean, that's something I talked to my wife about with stealing signals, and Pat will say the same about stat chasing, I'm sure. There's weeks where I fucking hit the flow state, and it is a great process to do it. I'm loving it. I'm going into it. And the reason that it sucks is that you have to do it every single week over the course of a whole season. And there's inevitably weeks where you have to answer the bell and write the article, but you can't get into your flow state. You can't force it. And it's like such a struggle, and it's a ton of work and all that. But like it is crazy when I write that article or that newsletter now, how different it feels in terms of the amount of work or energy or effort I have to put into it from one week to the next. And it's completely to what you were saying, like the flow state, if I'm there or not.
One reason I like stat chasing is because I definitely know what you're talking about with the prep for stat chasing, because I have to pull in all these stats and then I'll make notes and get myself set up so that I can actually do the show. And that can sometimes feel like a breeze or it can feel like a chore. But then I go live on the show and I do it all in one take. And like once I'm like an hour in, like I'm not doing another take. So like
unless you didn't have your mic plugged in.
Unless I didn't have my mic plugged in. Unless it's my fault, technical error. But like there's no like me stopping and being like, I'm just not feeling this one. So it forces you to be in the zone on, there's like a little bit of a high wire act. I mean, it's not, if I totally screwed something up, I could just do it all over again, but I really don't want to. And so it forces me into that mindset that I'm kind of seeking.
Yeah, it's so, Ben, what you said too really resonated with me, because a lot of the times the things I do find the flow state in are things I'm reluctant to start. Like the last time I had the flow state was, and it sounds stupid, but when I made that Top Shot video, the short 2-minute 20 video, like I had this idea in my head. I knew I wanted to do this, but I knew I'm like, this is 4 or 5 hours of work. By the time I write the jokes, I film it, I edit it, I do all the stuff on YouTube, I make the thumbnails, and I'm like, this feels daunting. Like, when am I going to find 4 to 5 hours to do this? And I kept pushing it off. And then one day I just cranked it. It literally was just an afternoon. I'm like 3 hours straight. I'm not looking at a single message, not looking at a single thing, just boom, 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 because I'm so energized to make this and edit it and get it out. And you feel so good. I'm like, I want to chase the dragon of that flow state more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great video. Was awesome too.
Yeah. it's a fucking great feeling.
Yeah, it is. And then the other side of it, and I think why it's been hard, is I've been doing way more stuff with Discord, and I'm in the Discords, and I love talking with people. I love chatting and stuff, but I'm also now in like all these different group chats. I will G-chat with people. I got, my iMessage text messages with Davis and those guys. We got our different Discord chats. We got different Discord servers. And like, theoretically, if I wanted to just have stimulus from chats all day and never do anything, I could have conversations all day, but I would never get anything done. And so I'm now trying to put in like systems and processes to help me like be involved in those communities, but not have them pull me away from actually getting good work done.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way about that stuff. There's like all these different messaging clients. Then I feel like I'm on every one of them.
Yeah. I know.
Feel like yeah. I agree. I feel like a lot of those things too, it's like a constant battle and there's all these quick fixes. It's almost like diets. Like you're always trying a new diet and you're trying to solve this problem, but you're just like creating another thing that you have to worry about now. It's like, like, oh, I was supposed to be thinking about not doing too many things at once. And, I don't know.
No, I know what you mean. And then like, if you don't have anything specific that you're trying to do, you end up just kind of falling back to what you kind of want to do.
Yep.
And now you're not getting anything done.
Now you're not getting anything done. Yep.
It's funny too, I notice like I snowball in one direction or the other. Like if I have a ton to do on a day and I write out my to-do list and I'm trying to squeeze everything in, like I'm just boom, hit this. I don't have time to waste. I got to hit this. And I have really productive days. Then I have a day like today where I have some things I want to do, but nothing like actually pressing. I have to get it done. And those are the days where I'm just dicking around all day because I don't have one thing coming up that like anchors me.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the hack is for that. Is it be more busy or plan out my day more? Some of my most successful days have been like, all right, for these 30 minutes, you're just going to do this, like this thing I've been wanting to do, but putting off. But yeah, it's this weird thing where I'm more busy. I'm actually more productive, even filling in around the busyness.
For sure. That was something I was going to say earlier when we were talking about the flow state and you were saying it's such a great feeling. I was thinking in my head, and I've said this to my wife before a million times, I do better work when I'm like accomplishing more too, or like under a deadline or working harder or getting more done. It's weird. And when you're not in the flow state, it takes longer and it's worse. It's worse quality. And I don't know, I feel the same way. Like when I'm busy, when I have things back to back, when I know when I'm doing things, everything I'm doing, I also feel like it's like higher quality as well for whatever reason. And you'd love to be able to live that way forever. And I try to as much as I can, but you need breaks as well. It's a hard balance for sure.
Yeah, it's always been deadlines for me that have kind of motivated me, and it's an exhausting way to do it because then you're like kind of going against the deadline. Then you get it all done, and the deadline passes, and you're like, you're kind of like relieved. It's not actually motivating to then jump on the next project because you're like, now I'm done. And it's like, no, you're not done. There's a lot of other stuff to do, and waiting for the next deadline to creep up is not it's not an effective motivation strategy.
Well, you ever see the people on Twitter? I guess they're normally like boomers, and it's like the equivalent of they toss a Molotov cocktail out there, like a tweet, and then they just log off for like 8 hours and come back and they have all these replies. Like, I can't function like that. Like, if I put something out there that I know is going to get conversation, then you're checking in on it. You're seeing what are people saying. You're interacting with people. Like, that's one of the things I've wanted to get better at is like, you put something out there, you're talking, like, you can step away and not have to engage with it every single second after.
Yeah, you want to talk about like the least productive days I've had have been any day that we released a Fantasyland.
Yeah.
Put that out because that's something that we'd spent a ton of time on. You put that out there and I'm just being like, refresh, like what's going on?
People talk about it.
Give me that dopamine hit.
Yeah. Because you put so much time and then you want to see that people are enjoying it and it's fun, but it's just, I completely agree with Pete. Like, it would be so nice if I could just be like, that's out there and now I don't have to do any more work on it. So I'll just do this other thing that I'm interested in doing.
I'm the same way, Pat, about like when I create, I want to see the feedback. And I've talked before, like I've thought before about writing a book. Certainly I have enough to say to fill up a book. I've written enough words to write a book. But I think the hardest thing for me would be that the process of like writing all these different chapters and not actually publishing it. Because that's part of my motivation too. When I do like fantasy work, like when I write something and I get positive feedback, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then like now I want to keep thinking about it, write something else next, especially when it comes from people that I have a lot of respect for myself and they're, complimenting something specific about the work. It's like, man, that's great. It's a cycle that, keeps you pushing forward. But anytime I've like started to think about writing a book, I'm like, man, I would have to go months at a time without any feedback. And I'd have to just completely self-motivate. That does not sound fun.
I know. And I'm such an extremist too. Like moderation is hard for me, where if I were to say, okay, I'm going to only do, let's just say Twitter, 2 days a week or 3 or during this time, it's easier for me to just say no Twitter at all. Than to come in, taste it. It's like the same if you're an alcoholic, you don't want to say, I'm just going to have a couple drinks a night. Like, you need to go cold turkey. Like, you need to stop because it's a gateway to the other thing. And I think that's what
it's habits, it's like, I got a Twitter tab open here and I'm not even thinking I'm checking Twitter. And it's like, your mouse almost magically clicks on the thing. It's like, oh yeah, what's going on Twitter? Like, so if you were going to say, I'm not doing Twitter for a while, I agree. I'd log out. I'd close everything. I wouldn't touch it.
My favorite thing about that is Denny. The past couple of years, he's taken the 90-day hiatus or whatever, 69-day hiatus to work on his book. And then he had done it this year, and then coronavirus happened. And he came back. He's like, the people need my content.
I remember that. He's been crushing lately.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would have been the same thing. It's like, okay, now we're all just stuck in here. Like, this is my time to shine.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting time to be having this entire discussion because it's been a weird last year, right?
I know. Well, I think everyone has been extremely online for like a full year now. Exactly. And it's, I'm like ready to not be, but what's the option? Like I'm probably still another 3 months from vaccination.
Lauren and I did,
I'm looking forward to summer. Let's put it that way.
Lauren and I booked something. We're going to do a road trip. We got an Airbnb and I actually meant to tell you this, Pat. We got an Airbnb in Hilton Head, which isn't too far from Tybee Island. And we're just going to do a road trip down because we don't want to fly. We're going to just hang out for 9 to 10 days by the beach, get takeout, read, go on walks, bike ride stuff, and just need to get out. Just need to drive hundreds of miles away from our house. I think we can do it safely. And I just need it. And I need to unplug. And so this is a fair warning. There's going to be about 9 days. I'm not doing shows. I'm not doing anything. I'm just unplugging from the matrix.
Just
That's how
I'll call you and we'll record it when we need to make our draft pick.
Yeah.
That's how intense your content schedule is. You have to give prior warning for 9 days off.
I mean, I probably don't have to. I'm just saying that for my own peace of mind.
No, you do have to.
I need to block that out of my calendar.
Yeah.
The day that Twitter died.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Chris, I'm very aware that it is possible to fly. I just personally do not want to fly right now. And I'm looking forward to a road trip. Fire up some books on tape at 3.5x. I mean, we can read the Odyssey, I think, in about 2 hours.
We can read the Odyssey.
So can you imagine if I get in the car with my wife and I got this audiobook and I throw it, the first thing is I throw it on 3.5x as we pull out?
That would be, he's just turning to go, so relaxing.
Yeah, that would be the end of the marriage. All right, guys. Thank you for as Aaron said, for tuning in to Flow State Chasing. Any other final words about the Omni stuff, Ben?
If you have any big questions, I would say go to my Substack, bengretsch.substack.com. There's a couple posts there, and I also know to throw some questions in the comments. So they're free posts, easy to access. And you can kind of read there and throw some stuff in the comments. I'm happy to answer individual questions or DM me on Twitter, whatever. But yeah, definitely try it out. It's legitimately one of my favorite types of fantasy. I like the impetus for building this is so many people wanted to try it. And I was running this out of Google Sheets, and now we have the ability to make it available to everyone. So if you want to try it out, it's there. We'll update the standings for you and everything. I legitimately think people should play it. Like
everyone in the chat is freaking out. Who's in the league with Taylor that's on the clock?
Me. And the guy is
who is it?
I don't know where he is.
What's his name?
Taylor 0093. And I called him out twice already.
Taylor 0093. If you're listening to this at 3.5x and you can't understand what we're saying, slow it down and make a goddamn pick. Hit him up on Twitter. Shoot him a tweet. You're fine.
Yeah. We'll be all right.
Yeah. Pat, any final words?
Well, our guy who's on the clock just DM'd me saying to add him to the group chat. So we're going to get a pick in here.
Wow. Exciting news.
Exciting news.
Big news.
Exciting. I hope he doesn't draft a groaner.
You got to be careful of the groaner. You always want to do your research on your Omnifantasy picks because there are groaners in there.
There's grinders and groaners is going to be the name of Pat's new podcast. Film grinders and groaners. All right. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for indulging our off-season tangents. I think Omnifantasy is the perfect subject for early off-season ship chasing stuff. So appreciate you guys. If for some reason you are putting up with this and haven't subscribed to the channel, you are one sick pup, and maybe just subscribe. We will see you guys as always next Wednesday at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. Talk to you then.